Review of the mayor's proposed FY25 municipal budget. And we are now going to hear from the executive offices. They will take us up to our lunch break, and their budget detail can be found on page 143 in your hymnal. So, Mayor, introduce us to your team if you're ready and take it away. And we have copies, are going to come in here at any moment of your presentation, but we don't want you to wait.
Good morning, Council Members Shook, Winston, Juan, Norwood, Boone, Overstreet, Westmoreland, and all those looking on as we come before you today. Colleagues, it's been my honor and pleasure to work with you and serve alongside you as we lead this city together and moving Atlanta forward. I've watched as you've deliberately gone over all of the budgets with the rest of the departments, and we anxiously look forward to our opportunity to share the executive department's budget with you. Again, thank you for your time and consideration today, and of course for your service to the people of Atlanta. I am joined on this dais with my Chief of Staff, Odie Donald, our Chief Operating Officer, Lisa Benjamin, our Chief Policy Officer, Courtney English, and our incoming interim COO, LaShondra Burks, as well as behind me is a whole team of wonderful individuals that make up the mayor's office. This is how they get so much done. They're so enthusiastic, they love to work, and they really are a very special bunch of people that get things done for the city of Atlanta. So you, of course, you can see our agenda. We're gonna go over quick highlights of last year and where we came from, and things that's spurring innovation, of course, our financial impact and our budget, and then take some questions. You always know I start with our mission statement. Atlanta is one city with one bright future, a city of safe, healthy, connected neighborhoods with an expansive culture of equity, empowering upward mobility and full participation of all residents, embracing youth development and an innovative, dependable government, moving Atlanta forward together. Is it on the screen? See if you're, we sent it. You don't have it? Or you're working on it? Okay. Okay. They're working on the presentation, printing as well as the technical. So in 2022, we came in 2022. This was right after COVID, having personnel challenges with the city, individuals either not being in position or, of course, working from home or some other just personnel challenges. We had infrastructure challenges, and there was fiscal uncertainty about how things were going to work from then on, given that the pandemic had really taken a toll on governments, particularly this city government. We also had a spike in violent crime in 2020, 2021. So 2022, this administration and this council had to really address crime, violent crime head on, coming back from COVID, again, with personnel challenges, a police force that had several vacancies and other challenges, and a morale challenge as well. And then lastly, we had infrastructure challenges, as you all are quite aware of, in various places around the city. And so we took that charge to say we needed to come back, start this government, get people working again, hire the right people, hire folks that were committed to the work of the people of Atlanta, and get things done that the public has asked us to get done. And so that is where we are now, where we'll start talking about what we did in 2024, and I'll have Lisa Benjamin communicate that to you.
Morning, President.
Morning.
President Ship is not here. Chairman Shook and City Council. I'm excited to be here. As you know, this is my last presentation. Excited to hand the baton to DCO Burke, so we are interim COO, and also wanted to share about our pillars. As you know, the mayor has identified 4 major pillars for our city to accomplish our goal to be the best place in the world to raise a child. One safe city is one of the pillars, which we talked about all the time. A city of opportunity for all, a city built for the future, and effective, ethical government that runs efficiently. In all of those focuses, we're looking at housing, workforce development, meeting the needs of the unhoused, creating opportunities for our youth, and building a bright future for our city. If we look at 2024, there's a number of accomplishments that we have. Namely, a reduction of crime of over 15%, and crimes against persons exceed that. We've also had a significant amount of infrastructure repairs, including reducing potholes, lighting up our cities so there's less opportunity for crime, and also making sure that we continue to have the best and brightest trained for our fire, police, and emergency services through the building of our Public Safety Training Center. As it relates to effective, efficient government that's ethical, that is one of the pillars we stand on. I'm pleased to report that even with our financial disclosures in the cities, one of the highest at 92% this year, on-time filings, and increase over 10% in the last year. We have a I would say triple A, but it's a double A credit rating for our fund balance. Is one of the highest that we've had in the city's history. We successfully have worked on our youth, increasing about $4 million in scholarships, and we've had one of the largest conferences come to our city, the National League of Cities, where we had over 5,000 municipal leaders come to our city. As it relates to the other work that we're doing to invest in our employees, we've addressed over $4 million in cost of living adjustments in the previous fiscal year and elevated the COLA from 2.5% to 3.5%. We successfully worked with the United Way National Board and got $10 million for emergency funding and humanitarian support for our members. Oh, you can't hear me? Sorry about that. As it relates to a city, much better. Opportunity for all. We led with youth and our Year of the Youth, and also we're recognized as the #2 emerging art capital to watch by Artisy. As it relates to a city built for the future, we should announce and remind you that we received $157 million for the Stitch project and other investments, including Concourse D, over $40 million of investment in our city. We also have invested in early childhood education, over $20 million, and we had over 4,000 young people sign up for our summer youth employment program. Next, Courtney English is going to highlight a little bit of the innovation that has occurred in 2024.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, COO Gordon, Benjamin, I'm sorry. And it's a pleasure to be with you all, council members. Of course, last year we created the Office of the Chief Policy Officer that was really designed to take a step back from the day-to-day operations of government and take a longer view on the long-standing, intractable problems that the city faces in order to supercharge and solve those issues of housing, issues of neighborhood revitalization, issues of food deserts inside of too many of our neighborhoods in an effort to close those long-standing equity gaps. Since the inception of that office, we've hit the ground running to address our city's unprecedented housing crisis. We've created the Housing Help Center that has served over 2,900 people since the month of October. We've launched and created the Melody, a creative 40-unit housing complex that is full of supportive housing units. Delivered that project in just under 4 months. We have 3 more Melodies on the way. Of course, we have an unprecedented crisis with office vacancy rates caused by the pandemic. Since the mayor took office, of course, he led the effort to purchase 2 Peachtree Street, which will be the largest conversion from office space into residential conversion in the southeastern United States. That project alone will generate hundreds of affordable housing units in downtown Central Core. We're working diligently to preserve our existing stock of housing, layering on incentives to protect legacy residents like owner-occupied rehab, down payment assistance, heirs property help as well. Of course, we've worked diligently to get new housing out of the ground. Since taking office, this office has led the construction of over 4,500 units of affordable housing. That's a 31% increase in affordable housing compared to previous years, with another 5,000 units on the way. And by on the way, we mean those units have already been funded and those deals are closed and moving. moving. This is not to include large-scale housing projects like Bourne Homes and Civic Center and a few others that we have underway. I would be remiss if I wouldn't just mention a note about Year of the Youth. Year of the Youth was a citywide effort to mobilize our philanthropic, corporate, business, community organizations, and working with many of you here on council to wrap our arms around our young people. That effort touched over 30,000 young people, raised over $30 million, and ultimately resulted in a 46% reduction in youth crime overall. So we are certainly proud of that effort as well. Happy to talk further about any and all of the innovations from the Office of Chief Policy from the Office of the Chief Policy Officer. We've talked a lot about Forest Cove. Won't belabor that point. We're doing a lot to shelter the unhoused, and we're working really hard to revitalize our distressed, underserved communities and provide basic amenities to neighborhoods all throughout the city that for far too long have gone without. With that, I'll turn it over back over to our mayor to continue the presentation.
Yeah, and before we go on to the next slide, where we're talking about innovations as well as the nuts and bolts of government that was highlighted by COO Benjamin. We also had some fun as well. Let's not forget that we continued to have the Atlanta Jazz Festival as well as the series. We celebrated the 50 years of hip hop. We also we hosted a lot of large-scale events, so our Office of Emergency Preparedness had to work with federal agencies, local government agencies to make sure the safety and security of whether it be dignitaries or whether it be just large events and festivals. And the Peachtree Road Race still had to be managed as the largest 10K. Lots of things in our downtown area. We also had renovations of various city offices with DEEM to make sure that our employees that constantly complain about various challenges with mold, mildew, and other things in the tower and even in the atrium building. So last thing is the work that's done by our International and Immigrant Affairs Division can't be understated. As you know, this nation has definitely had a number of individuals that have come into the country, and our city, while it may not make national news, is some large migration that's taken place in New York and other places. We do have our set of individuals we had to make sure we took account of and help get safe passage or safe rest here in this city. And so and I got a ton of people behind me that are doing great things saying, pick my department, say something, Mayor. But I didn't want to, electric vehicles and electric charging stations, sustainability, solar, on and on and on. Y'all see me later and tell me I didn't call we're going to be a top 5 technology ecosystem in technology, but only so much we can talk about at a time. The rest you can see in our annual report. But I did just want to highlight that lots of folks are doing a lot of good work. Now, I just want to give you we can go to the next slide. The organizational structure for FY25. This document is one that you've seen quite a bit to be able to know how the judicial branch works. The city council, of course, you all are aware of that for sure. And then the mayor's office, you've known of the chief operating officer, chief of staff, and chief policy officer structure. And now we're elevating a new pillar at the top, a new component, which is the chief strategy officer. And I'll explain that now as we, of course, have seen the previous layout, but this chief strategy officer is going to help us in a tremendous way. And it'll be, Peter Amon will be the occupant of that position. And what that is to do is not to get into the day-to-day operations. He will not be over personnel or over, the day-to-day goings on within those operating divisions. But what he will do and his team will help us look broadly across the entire government for ways to innovate, to improve, to accelerate, to get things that are stuck, get it unstuck, to be able to look at best practices across the nation. It's an in-house consultancy, essentially, to solve some of these problems with moving Atlanta forward, with RM Clayton, with some of the long-term visions that we have around connectivity and purchasing in our city. And so that has been elevated to the mayor's office. And Peter's coming over from APD, as you know. He was the chief the Chief Administrative Officer. Now, Mr. Donald, will you talk about our positions, head count, and FTEs?
Yeah, so the mayor's office, I mean, I think you've heard the mayor repeatedly talk about supercharging government, this group project, and how we get things done. And of course, our position count for FY25 and what we're requesting from the council will help us do that. Now, what you have before you is a snapshot. Now, it's from January, so we don't have as many unfilled positions as it might show, but we're looking at a total of 248 and a half positions, slight increase from the year before. Some of those will come through the Chief Policy Office, including some increases under the Chief of Staff's Mayor's Office as well. In addition, when you look at our overall budget, we're looking at an increase of about $2.5 million. That increase includes those personnel additions that we talked about, but also includes some subtractions. We've moved the security costs that were once in our office out, and they now move to Dean. I think you received a report on that earlier in the week, if not last week. And in addition to that, we have also our cultural affairs, about $2 million now moves, will eventually move and flow into the trust fund. As we look at FY25, so I'll just highlight those changes. And I think you guys have done a year-over-year comparison. And the one thing that I do want to make sure that we highlight is the production that you get out of this executive office that, you know, may not have been seen before. The mayor is really taking on a philosophy of using our office to kind of incubate, come up with great ideas, and then deliver those out into the various departments who really deliver the nuts and bolts. Now, you might see him out, you know, filling potholes and doing things like that, but that's not a part of the everyday job, just a part of the ideas that come out of the office that we flow into the department. So in doing so, I think it's also important to really highlight, you know, what you can expect in FY25 as we look at that supercharging that government. So I think when the mayor's 4 pillars, they'll remain in place. I think that's what he's really set our government on this path forward for. One safe city, effective and ethical government, a city of opportunity for all, and a city built for the future. You know, we have the new E911 center coming on. I think the mayor is extremely excited to come to you about our plan for FIFA World Cup, as well as you heard Mr. English talk about the expansion of some of our rehousing efforts that have really taken the forefront under his leadership, with the Melody becoming I'd say really a world-class model that's been highlighted already by the mayor at the African American Mayors Association that we hosted here recently, and even in hosting the Kenyans who came into town and talking about the way we deliver everything from homeless services to public safety. And so as we deliver this city built by the future, I did want to pause and allow Mr. English to just kind of chime in, because we've got these exciting activities around MARTA and Year of the Youth, and even our senior activities. And I think being an incubator of those, wanted to give him an opportunity to just chime in on how this budget that we're asking for in FY25 will help deliver some of those very important projects.
In short, the idea to add additional infill stations is really designed to increase our capacity to deliver, of course, transit, but also close some of those longstanding equity gaps that I mentioned earlier. Transit is a key driver of commercial activity. It's a key driver of development, and for far too long, too many of our communities have lacked transit accessibility. And so when you look at where we're placing those 4 infill stations, they are again designed to open up growth corridors in neighborhoods that haven't had that level of growth. Without that level of growth, that means people lack access to affordable housing. It makes it harder to do that. It means people lack access to grocery stores. It makes it harder to do that. It means people lack access to transit that connects them to job centers. All of that All of that makes it harder to accomplish one of the mayor's goals, which is to make the city of Atlanta the best place in the country to raise a child. And so I know that this office will be leading those efforts to deliver those infill stations with a high degree of urgency, but do it in a way that protects legacy residents and also opens up corridors and opportunities for all who call Atlanta home. In addition, we talked a lot about Year to Youth. I don't know that I need to double click down on that, but I'm happy to talk more about it because it's so phenomenal.
And so as we communicated about things that have happened and things that we're talking about going forward with, one of the things that we're going to do is supercharge, that's our term for accelerate, supercharge our government even more in FY25. So one thing that you'll be excited to know is that we are really weeks away from our first CARES unit to be officially out and about. We have 12 individuals going through training, 7 will be coming out in a matter of a couple of weeks, and then another 5 thereafter. These are individuals that will be unarmed responders, really dedicated to promptly addressing non-emergency service calls. You see the vehicle there. We've already bought the equipment, bought all their uniforms, bought their vehicles, got them striped, outfitted, etc. And you actually see them out and about right now practicing or training. So that's an addition that you'll really see the benefits of. And was I supposed to let you do this, Ms. Burks? I'm sorry, go ahead. No,
you were in charge.
Don't start over, but catch the rest of that. Go.
You
Sorry
are
about
the
that.
mayor. You have the right to do all of it. Thank you, Mayor. Again, good morning, Chair Shook and members of City Council. Thank you for this opportunity. The mayor has eloquently described our new care unit that will be coming out at the end of June, early part of July. So I'll jump over, but another part of our public safety efforts, I would be remiss if I did not talk about the expansion of our Office of Violence Reduction. We have gone from 1 staff person to 4 over the last year, and we can see already that we're going to be expanding a lot of our services and our work around the non-policing strategies and violence reduction. Also coming on board this fall is our Center for Diversion Services. We have been talking about this one. We're excited that this is coming together. It's a collaboration between the City of Atlanta and Fulton County, and we are excited that Grady Hospital will be our actual operator. The center will provide us the opportunity to divert individuals with concerns related to mental health, homelessness, substance abuse, and poverty, and offer them connections to immediate needs such as basic medical care, showers, laundry, food, a quiet room, and just a space to sober. One of the key partners in the Diversion Center also is the Georgia Justice Project, and they will operate a one-of-a-kind in this country warrant resolution center, which will work collaboratively with Fulton County Court judges, our prosecutors, our public defenders, to resolve any outstanding arrests that would otherwise keep some of the individuals at the Diversion Center from taking part of those services. Fire stations. As it relates to our fire stations, we know it was mentioned earlier by our COO that we opened Fire Station 36 and our EMS Station 37, but that's not all for us. As we continue to supercharge, as the mayor has described, we will be having groundbreakings for the construction of 4 state-of-the-art fire stations, to include ones on Benjamin E. Mays Drive and also one on Howard Mill Road. And in addition to the 4 stations, we're also moving forward with the construction and finalizing the design of the new long-awaited and needed Zone 4 police precinct. Our Public Safety Training Center, a December 2024 ribbon cutting is coming. The Public Safety Training Center will be home to Atlanta Fire Rescue and Police for training, joint training, first time they have been able to train together. We will also include our driver training on our skills pad, our skid pad, and the Emergency Vehicle Obstacle Course, better known as EVOC, not just for police and fire, but we're looking at all of our other departments, such as Public Works, ATO, DOT, and Watershed, who could take advantage to help us bring down some accidents citywide across. And at this time, I'll turn it over to our Chief of Staff, Mr. Donald, to talk a little bit more about some other initiatives that we have been charged by our mayor to supercharge.
Yeah, so I'll tell you, the cool thing about this budget and really all of the budgets that, we've been blessed to implement under the mayor is that you can see the return on the investment and the activities are tangible on where our taxpayers are spending their dollars. And I think what we're planning for FY25 under his leadership is no different. Last year, he was able to negotiate the acquisition of what was West End Art Center. And as you heard him announce during the State of the City, we'll actually be turning that into even a more active and vibrant place for art and activities in the West End, named after the former poet laureate of the city. He is also, taking, I think, summer programs. I remember I got my first job with PIC. I think he told me he got one of his first jobs there as well. Back in the day, being Atlanta babies, we grew up in the summer program, but back then, about 1,000 people a year were able to get their summer jobs. And under the mayor, with his partnership with business and industry, we put in our $2.5 million a year, and they almost doubled that so that we're able to serve 5,000 plus young people between the ages of 14 to 24. I think, one of the first things, and I was not a, well-known, practitioner of grocery store deliveries before coming to the city of Atlanta, but fresh food and food insecurity and wiping that out has been a humongous part. So I think we all know a little bit more about grocery stores than we did a little while ago. And so today the mayor actually celebrated in District 3, the reopening of the Walmart. And I think that's a huge deal because for us, it didn't cost us anything but a little bit of sweat equity. And I think under the mayor's leadership also we give kudos to Mr. English that we process permitting and things of that nature more quickly. But now our residents have access to fresh food in a place where they wouldn't before. And so the Gooder grocery stores, I know you actually saw that recently, as well as the infill stations that Mr. English talked about before, really making these dollars stretch in a way that they deliver for the community. And so in supercharging government, I guess I'll hand it over to the mayor and tell you how we make that group project work.
Yes, so we're rounding third here, Mr. But yeah, the Walmart celebration was awesome today, and it was joined by Councilmember Amos as well as Councilmember Dozier, they basically share it because it's across the street from one another, and I left there to come here, so I know they're still working with the residents that are so excited to have groceries back in that area. So now, a successful group project, part of what is unseen sometimes in the mayor's executive office is the collaborations, the amount of work it takes to get a stitch, $157 million, the relationships to make sure that the airport stays in the city's hands, the work that it takes to make sure with the ARC or with the state of Georgia, working with the governor and the state legislature. So Atlanta is a group project. We work well with our U.S. representatives, our senators, our Invest Atlanta, Habitat for Humanity, everybody, Atlanta Housing. We literally have to work with everyone to get more out of our budget. Many of the things that we see done, whether it is our youth scholarships or whether it is Year of the Youth stuff, our grants and opportunities, we work with the Community Foundation, with the various philanthropic groups. So this group project, all that usually comes out of some mayor's office individual, whether that's intergovernmental affairs, whether that's our partnerships, strategic partnerships people, and others. So I just wanted to highlight that where you definitely see departments that have nuts and bolts, but in here, a lot of things are relationships, and that's how we get more done. So I'll turn it over to Odie to talk about our employee investments so you all can see where the dollars go on employees.
I think one of the main things that I think the mayor has highlighted over the course of the years and in every budget, while we have a ton of investments, I think the number one investment is always in our people. You know, you often get to see the mayor, you get to see his senior leadership team, and you get to see these awesome leaders behind us. But the person who is making sure that the trash is picked up on time, the people at the airport, making sure that it runs well and remains number one, and really across our government, whether it be watershed and other areas, you know, those folks don't always get to just do. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention police and fire, who keep us all safe, and one of the main responsibilities of government. So over the mayor's first 3 years, he's invested, with the council's help and with your leadership and guidance, almost $200 million over 3 years. And that goes from COLAs to APD bonuses, recruit housing, take-home vehicle program. I mean, it goes on. And I think, as you'll see coming forward in one of your upcoming meetings, we've talked about the comp and class study, which was led by Madam CEO, Ms. Benjamin, you know, ensuring that our future of our city is in good hands, and that our staff members benefit so that they can continue to pass benefits to the residents. I think one of the key things that is coming forward is an additional, on top of these investments over 3 years, an additional $30 million will be invested in the next 3 years to make sure that we bring our organization up to being a model employer that I know is important to the mayor.
Yeah, health benefits are flat. You know, we kept those so that people didn't have to pay more for health benefits. We kept the hazard pay, the premium pay, I should say, from COVID, on and on and on, trying to make sure that we are a model employer. And the last slide is the whole of government strategy. While today we may be talking a lot about the general fund, and sometimes and then also the airport fund or the watershed fund, let's remind the public and ourselves about how much impact we have, whether that's through the CFO's office or our treasurer or any of our special revenue funds. There's a general fund, but then there's the pension fund, there's enterprise funds, there's tax allocation districts, there's all these things adds up. These resources plus these relationships and partnerships, they equal the results that you see in this government that we all have done together. And this is about $12 billion under management. And so sometimes you'll see us take funds or utilize funds in TADS or utilize funds in hotel motel or some other kind of trust fund to be able to get more that does not cost us for, you know, raising taxes or doing anything like that. That we use these accounts to improve and to get the results in our operations. So always communicate about what you are responsible for, which is a $12 billion operation and set of funds. So we thank you for your time, and we will now take questions. Of course, there's an appendix with other information in it, but we thank you for your patience as we got through that, and we thank you for being here as you just heard our presentation.
All right,
Thanks.
thank you. The queue at the moment is Mr. Wan, Ms. Bakhtiari, and Ms. Boone. And Ms. Overstreet will follow. So, Mr. Wan.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor and team. Appreciate your being here and appreciate the presentation. I'm going to start with kind of high-level questions and then work my way down into a lot more detail. I think the first off is, and this is something I've struggled with, I think this is my 11th budget that I've worked on as a council member. I've always struggled a little bit with the executive offices in terms of your purpose and mission and charge. I get it. I get everything y'all do, and you've articulated it really well. But when I look at the budget book, and this is what the public sees, so on page 153, I look at your performance metrics. I'm not sure this relays to the public what y'all do. This feels very much like special initiatives where I feel like your office is really divided into core functions, core city operational functions, and then special initiatives. So help me with that a little bit. Help the public understand why there aren't more operational metrics in here, and if you were to include them, what would they look like and what would they be?
Yeah, that's actually a good question. You know, and our comms team is here, and they do a great job of highlighting all of the government's activities, whether that's in parks, whether that's in police and fire or any other department, public works, the mayor's office, the executive office has the responsibility of managing the entire government, essentially everything that's under the COO or under the chief of staff or under the policy office, there's people management, and then there's a bunch of process management and, procurement of services, whether we use contractors or we do it directly in-house. So I would say you kind of articulated there's core functions, and then there are special projects, special initiatives, and then I think the Dickens administration has added a third layer, which is to incubate and innovate. And then you try to hold on to that till you stabilize it, and then you can put it into a department. So various things we do under the chief policy officer eventually migrates his way into planning, into housing or other places, so on and so forth. And I think that is unique and new, but it's actually producing the results. So maybe on page 153, the amount of metrics that we're talking about here, whether it's number of apprentices, hosting number of international delegations where, this city is an international city. These are metrics that are counting the number of people, the amount of engagements, the number of youth involved, the amount of nightlife assessments we've done. So the number of nightlife assessments lead to a reduction in violent crime. So the amount of film permits results in revenue. And that is, that's the challenge with the mayor's office doing this work, but the outcomes may be seen in a department, or it may be seen in a revenue line, or it may be seen in a reduction of an expense line in somebody else's department. Maybe we can work together on how to highlight these in a way that really draws it even further, connecting it to the results.
Yeah, I mean, I don't get me wrong. I am not arguing or disagreeing with any of the metrics you have. Everything you say is important. It's just, again, public-facing document, public questions and public understanding. I don't believe this conveys kind of the overall objective and impact that your office has. It's going to lead me into my next question, but I want to ask another question first. So the Chief Strategy Officer addition, which I fully support, and mentioned moving Atlanta forward, I have to throw in Renew Atlanta because those projects are over almost a decade old now. Does this year's budget that you presented, I know the announcement was made after we received the budget, include all of the costs and staff associated with what Mr. Amon will be himself, as well as a team he'll be pulling over? And if not, when will we see that incremental?
Yes, I'll tell you, our standard is the mayor has always provided us with the resources necessary to deliver. And he's done a little bit of shuffling, within our organization. So right now, we believe that this budget will allow us to, incorporate the chief strategy officer as well as deliver on the vision of the mayor. Now, as we bring Mr. Amon into the fold, there will be opportunities for us to maybe right-size things similar to what they did with Renew Atlanta and pieces like that. I'd imagine that over the next quarter, if not before, then if there's a need to make any adjustments, then the mayor will lead us coming back before you. But at this time, and the way we're structured, we believe that we have the resources necessary.
Within the executive office budget?
Yes, well, and in addition to that, we'll also be bringing a personnel paper with some of those adjustments to you later today. But yes, within the mayor's office budget currently.
Okay, I have to say that surprises me a little bit, because I would imagine with again, those announcements were made after this budget was presented. I know he's going to need resources if he's going to be effective, and I'm surprised that.
Well, I wouldn't be surprised that the mayor had forethought in making decisions and adjustments with his team.
Okay, well then then let's go down that path, because the reason why I asked about the metrics and the public kind of reconciliation with what y'all do and why you do it, your department has the largest increase in terms of budget requests from 24 to 25, and that's why my first question was important, is how are we explaining to the public why you should have a 11% increase? And I'm going to compound that with the fact that something you said, and I've been making notes of, is that it's actually not a $2.5 million increase. it's actually closer to a 6.5 million increase because you've moved money out of your budget into others. You moved culture. You said you're going to move cultural affairs to trust funds. 1.8 is gone from y'all into Dean. So your increase is actually twice that. So help me reconcile that, both in terms of function, need, activity, because
I
it's
think
just
you're
not
actually,
answering it.
no, I think those are great questions, but I think you're answering some of them. So one, I think in the last budget, the mayor told you he'd be moving some things around and really understanding where things sit appropriately within the mayor's office operationally, or if they operate, better. I think the security change as well as the cultural affairs piece is a part of that. I would also say when you look at it, when you say that increase, you could compare it to, let's say, in police, 3.5% increase might equate to about $12 million, where an 11% increase for us might be $3 million. So I wouldn't look so much at the percentages as much as the true dollar amount. I think the other piece is to ensure that we're making room for some of these innovations that the mayor has included. So when you add ensuring that we have enough positions for when Mr. Amon, for example, well, he is taking his role, but when he starts getting rolling and he needs additional positions, whether it be in the Office of Innovations or other things, which in his line item, those increased positions ensure that he's able to do so. I think another piece is within our office, the work is done through people versus more so when you look at somewhere like ADOT, where it's a combination of people, but also professional services. And so those increases that you see within our budget actually will allow us to carry out the mayor's vision more effectively, while also moving some of the things that are more appropriate somewhere else. And I'll just highlight the security costs, because that's one of the ones you mentioned, going to Dean where it's most appropriate.
So I'm all supportive of moving funds out up to the appropriate funding source or the appropriate department. I think, again, where I'm getting a little, I haven't made the leap yet is with a $6 million, effectively a $6.5 million increase. And I'm not, while I am seeing a headcount increase, it was my understanding from finance that most of those increases right now are simply from what we saw in FY24. Going in, there were a lot of just vacant positions, but then now they're filled. So again, I'm seeing a big,
That's correct, yeah.
yeah. So it will be helpful to me is, I guess, once we go into the personnel paper specifically for, and I'm not picking on y'all because you're the executive office, I'm picking on because y'all are the biggest increase. So we have to be able to defend that.
Well, one area I think that we should also point out is when the personnel paper and when this data was presented the last time, it did not incorporate some of those positions that we intended to fill that should have been filled. I think if you go back to our presentation last year, we highlighted that we would be filling those positions, and now they are filled. I think that's also one of the things that you would see here is that those positions in January were intended to be unfunded. And so that was the same issue last year. So that's one of those structural things that I think we're in the process of cleaning up now.
And I do want to chime in a little bit. So $2.5 million increase, while you say it's the highest, it is on a percentage basis, 10% or so, almost 11%, but on a dollar amount, it's not.
Sure.
But the dollars that the mayor's office, the executive office brings in, you don't, without going to the planning department and saying, we have to focus on improving permitting so that we can get these projects out the door faster, to get revenue in faster as these buildings or projects are built. You don't get this high amount of revenue to make sure that we fix purchasing and procurement so that we can spend more efficiently. These things come out of the office that drives the innovation and the success. So when you see the outcomes of more affordable housing or more support for homelessness, but you're getting it from partnerships and not from the general fund exclusively, that takes that's what the first part of this presentation was for. We're quite aware that there's an increase in our funding request, but we're also, undeniably effective at doing what we do and getting the results from more housing to more youth engagement to violent crime reduction, the various things that we all serve this city for. $2.5 million getting you, hundreds of millions of dollars in output. I think it's a very good, as a matter of fact, I know it's a great investment, a great return on investment.
Yeah. Again, I'm not questioning that. I'm just helping. I just need someone to help me connect the dots between what we approved in the FY24 budget, staffing level and dollar amount, to the January snapshot in terms of positions, to what you're asking for in FY25. And again, I had come in before y'all started presenting, looking at the increase, thinking, oh, this is like all the other departments. It's simply right-sizing your FY25 budget to what your actual staffing levels are that you're seeing right now. What I'm hearing is that there's actually more coming, potentially.
No, and I also misspoke. I heard you mention cultural affairs, and while that does flow through a trust fund, those funds remain in the general fund. Yeah, I mentioned that because we actually right-sized it, and we send those expenses through the trust fund.
Okay. Well, so even if we take that out, you still have the $1.8 million that's gone to Deem that's no longer in your budget. So
that's right.
That is an incremental increase.
Well, you do remember now, we did do those COLAs, so we're talking about 3.5% across the board, so you want to make sure to include that. That's about $1.9 million. In addition to those funds, you've got those additional hires that we talked about. So I think when we really back those numbers out, I would consider that nominal. So the entire government and the mayor's office is not exempt from that, received a 3.5% increase. And so that 3.5% increase, when you figure it and you remove the 1.8 million, as well as the positions that were unfilled, that we filled after the snapshot that we provided in FY 2024, also carry into that. And what also is happening, and I think I referred to that in my initial comments, in FY25, we kind of had the same challenge. And I think we've corrected it in the personnel paper, or attempted to, in the one that's come to you later today. So I would, give that a quality look as well.
Yeah, I'll definitely dive into that. And I think the answer to my questions probably is in there. But I just want to at least put the question out there because of the increase, because of, again, public scrutiny on this jump in expenses. Just need to be able to reconcile that. And plus, I'll just, as I said earlier, I think it's going to get bigger because of Chief Strategy Officer functionality. Much like when we were here last year, part of the big jump to this point has been the building out of the Chief Policy Officer's staff. So I get it, but let's just be upfront about it. Absolutely. So that we know what the dollars are going in and going out. While I'm talking about the Chief Policy Officer, and I'll direct this at Mr. English, again, going back to what the mayor said, the impact of what the office's work is doing has been very tangible and very evident. I think, again, the housing efforts we see, and I applaud y'all on that. Where I'm still a little confused on, I'll admit, is the neighborhood initiative. There's a lot of confusion in my district about the neighborhood ombudsman, the representatives that go to the NPU meeting, what's been told, promised, and not delivered. And I just want to say, we need to look at that because it's making it very difficult for some of us district representatives when we are left holding the bag for what has been promised. And that's, we want to work with the representatives, that we appreciate the additional support, but it's not clear. And I think the first step will be, if you're going to continue that functionality, I think it needs to be just a reality check with them in terms of what actually can be accomplished and delivered versus what they're telling folks. So I don't think I'm the only council member that will be up here saying that. But again, it seems like everything else you're doing, I get, and I'm really excited about. It's just that one that is kind of a drag for me right now. I don't know if you've got any thoughts on that you want to share.
I received that feedback wholeheartedly, and I would love to talk to you or any other council member who has feedback. I'm happy to receive whatever information you all have and take that back to the team and see if we can work through it and provide additional clarification as necessary. I receive it.
Me as well. I want to hear about it. Anything that touches the community directly, like the ombudsman, I'd like to hear the challenges associated with it.
I'll just close by, I mean, obviously, as I look at your team and I see everything that y'all are doing out in the community in terms of the various initiatives, ranging from immigration affairs to youth, to housing to, just functional operational stuff. It's evident that y'all are fired up. I like the supercharged term because we feel it. I think, if we can just reconcile some of my financial and operational questions, we'll be good to go. So thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Juan.
Thank you. Thank you all so much for being here this morning. Is it still morning? It's still morning.
Still morning.
And very grateful for the time for the presentation. Wanted to kind of piggyback off of Councilmember Juan's questions about the Office of Policy. Just diving in real quick, I think the work that we have been updated on, the Housing Help Center, everything else, permanent supportive housing with the Melody. I want the next iteration of the Melody in my district. I want the next 3 iterations of the Melody in my district. So my question, though, is there a way? I had no idea that y'all had 28 employees and that they were still growing. It is exciting. That these initiatives are being done, but there's not much communication with council on those updates. Can we, similar to what Councilmember was saying about being able to justify that growth and not having duplicative efforts, what can we do in terms of better communication and regular updates so that we have a better understanding of what's being worked on?
We serve at the pleasure of the mayor and at the pleasure of council. I'm happy to make any member of the team available for whether it's at CDHS or finance exec or whatever committee you all deem appropriate to come answer questions and present on anything that we're doing. The thing I'll say on a giant, if we take a giant step back around what we're ultimately trying to accomplish, Atlanta for far too long has been a tale of 2 cities. We have the widest wage gap in the country. We have one of the highest child poverty rates. We have one of the lowest levels of economic mobility. What that translates to for citizens is, in a very tangible, real way, of course, is lack of opportunity. It translates into displacement for legacy residents, and it translates into crime because all of the things I mentioned address the root causes of crime or lead to potential criminal activity. And so what this office is charged with doing is essentially trying to close those equity gaps. And so, we did grow the office because it's a massive challenge. There are 12,000 people who are currently facing evictions. There are 175 folks a year ago, 171 lost their lives to homicides. Thomasville Heights is one of the poorest census tracts in the entire state of Georgia. And if we allow those conditions to continue, what you will see is those wage gaps widen, those equity gaps increase. And if you don't care about any of that, I'm not saying that you do, but for the listening public, if you don't care about any of that, you should care about the 135 people who lost their lives last year. And while our police budget, candidly, gets a lot of the fanfare in terms of its size and impact on government, and we love our police officers and our firefighters and our first responders who do a phenomenal job responding, if we are ever going to get serious about how we address crime in a comprehensive and holistic fashion, that means we have to get serious about expanding opportunities for youth in out-of-school time. It means we have to get serious about closing those equity gaps. It means we have to get serious about adding additional grocery stores to council districts that don't have them. It means we have to get serious about ensuring that we house the unhoused. It means we have to get serious about all those things. And so what I'm getting at is we are in an unprecedented moment, and the work that we are trying to accomplish, city government, candidly, was not designed to do that. And the mayor is attempting to redesign government in a fashion that addresses the root causes of many of the issues that we face.
Yeah, agreed. Unprecedented times. And I love the work they all are doing. Not too crazy about the name of the department, but love it. Teasing you. And so just understanding if we could, moving forward, if there is a way to do a briefing with each of the district members, like to understand what's going on in my district.
Sure.
So that we know what we're working towards together to echo the mayor's famous words, being a group project, just because like, I love what y'all are doing. And I don't want my like if I'm trying to do legislative policy work and if it somehow is getting in the way of work that I am unaware of in my district or citywide, rather than having two initiatives that are working against each other but trying to accomplish the same goal, can we have briefings so that we have a better understanding and so that we're together utilizing that housing trust fund, for example, so that we're not dipping into or trying to dip into something for the same initiative.
Absolutely.
And so that would be my ask of moving forward. Can we have like, it doesn't have to be every month, y'all are way too busy for that, but maybe quarterly briefings with council members on what's occurring in their districts so we can work together on that. And simultaneously, the ombudsman's office, great initiative. As of right now, it feels that there is an opportunity again to come together because in terms of what is the lane of Commissioner Clay's office versus, I guess, Director Meriday, and ours, because right now it seems that we sometimes get called for questions about the constituent issues or the constituents are confused about who to go to. So again, happy to sit down and give that feedback to streamline to make it the most effective it can be. In that vein, if there's also an opportunity to kind of discuss allocation of funds to council, because being in unprecedented times, this council and the mayor's office is redefining what that initiative looks like and recreating what the city is doing, which I love. If there's also a way for us, for council offices, I think revisiting the allocation to council, because more is expected of us now going into becoming a bigger world-class city with FIFA coming on and everything else, either looking at more allocations to the analysts team or to offices so that we can hire more people to do more of this work, because we are the most front-facing part of this of the city with our constituencies, or at least we should be if we're doing our jobs correctly. And if there's a way to also visit that so that we can again be working together, because it's not a weak council strong. I mean, it technically is, that is the political terminology, but to echo this administration, and I'm grateful to this mayor for always allowing me to bother him, to have a unified approach with these things. So those are my asks, and I don't know if you want to comment on that because I've been talking at you for a second. So,
why don't you answer and then I'll.
Well, I just agree 1,000%. I think, whether it's our office working with you to do access to council, or our office working with Councilmember Juan to ensure that Invest Atlanta is providing resources to those impacted by bridge closures, or our office working with really anybody any of you who call, honestly. Councilman Overstreet, we're working heavily together on grocery stores. We just opened a Gooder station at HE Homes, and Councilmember Norwood, we're always at your service. And so we are an open book. You call, we will show up, and we are happy to present. Any member of my team is happy to present at whatever structure you deem appropriate, whether it's one-on-one briefings, whether it's in council committee. You show up, you ask, we'll be there.
okay, understood. And thank you for that. And going further into the affordable housing plan and everything that's been done, first, big applause for this administration for the housing initiatives and also factoring in permanent supportive housing into that. I don't believe that any other administration's ever done that, and I certainly have never seen an administration put this much money actually behind housing efforts. So thank you for that. I have a question though. When I'm looking at the allocation for planning, the 26.5 million, and we're talking about the permitting piece, do we feel that that is going to be enough with the direction our city is heading and how much we're growing? That is something that has been a concern of mine moving forward, and what we can do to best help with that.
Yeah, we are growing constantly, and this is a challenge that we had in planning, and I think our commissioner and her team for their diligence, as you've seen, improvements in permitting and time going down. And it's not just one department. Most of the permits also end up having watershed as a connection, as well as the fire department has to come by and make sure that it meets code, et cetera, et cetera. So we actually had early on, Ms. Benjamin put together a team across the board to look at how do we improve permitting. And we've, I don't have the number in front of me, but it was a significant drop in time and days. That has to even get better. And I think some of the things that we've been doing out of the policy office will help with that, and it has helped with that. I didn't know if you had a specific you wanted to give about planning.
So we have, when we created the office, we essentially pulled positions out of planning in order to accelerate our ability to identify deals, to make use of public land to address the eviction crisis, so on and so forth. We left some of those positions. We did not eliminate the positions in planning. And so now those positions are being backfilled. In terms of whether it will be enough, we believe that the mayor has allocated enough resources in this budget to planning to accomplish the goal as is. There's some process improvement, however, that we need to do. The other thing I'll mention is that we are always competing with private talent. And so it is difficult for planning to keep high-quality planners because they could, jump and get paid, significantly more on the private market. And so we're proud of the initiatives that the mayor launched, where we essentially processed almost 3,000 back planning, permitting applications by bringing in folks on the weekends actually and training them. And so you'll continue to see us do things like that. We do believe that staffing levels in this budget are appropriate, and there are going to be some internal things that we do working with the planning department that would allow us to increase our capacity to generate permits faster.
Okay, thank you. Do appreciate that update. And my question kind of mimics that of ATL DOT, very excited for FIFA. And we know that downtown needs a lot of work. And I obviously spoke to CFO about this, and I know we allocated 51 million. So the idea is, do we feel that that will be, I know that we're doing a lot of downtown blitzes because it needs a lot of work in preparation for this world-class event in 2 years. That's going to be tomorrow. And so do we feel that between the 51 million, is that going to get us to where we need to go?
Oh, Bala, you want to answer?
Oh, hey, Money Man.
Mohammed Bala, CFO. Would definitely want to chime in on the Department of Transportation's operational budget, the one that in front of you, the personnel delivery. In terms of the capital delivery, we're going to work closely with the department to make sure that they have the necessary funding in place well ahead of the World Cup events. Mm-hmm. We have different mechanisms, current capital funding that's in place for them to reprioritize, but as well as bonding capacity that the city has specifically for downtown that we can leverage for the World Cup associated projects. So still more conversations to have with the Department of Transportation, administration, and council, and you will see a series of actions that will come throughout the year to help drive that effort.
Understood.
I just wanted to also add that we've been working with a lot of the partners downtown. We've done an assessment of the infrastructure in the downtown, including the sidewalks. We had about 3 weeks ago a tour with all the major providers downtown at night, and to look at the lighting deficits. And we walked about 5 miles, and working with Georgia Power and a lot of the other hospitality industry, ACVB, Downtown Development Authority, a Metro Chamber, a lot of other partners who are also willing to do on the private side some investments. So there is an effort underway to make sure that we not only assess, but we have funding, and it's multi-layered. So that work is on the ground working.
So we are planning to have a FIFA World Cup session conversation with council about what has been done, what are some of the plans, get y'all's input on how things could be shaped and sized. We are aware that we are a city of 12 districts, which everybody generally likes to divide by 12 on everything, on certain things. We know that we're trying to make sure that FIFA World Cup is a regional thing that has opportunities and activations, not just downtown, but we also know that downtown is downtown, and there's going to be, I mean, that's where most of the hotels are, that's where the stadium is, that's where the security and area is. So we know that we're going to have to pay more attention and more investment, which is why we had this team of everybody do a 5-mile walk of all these streets downtown, literally highlighting that sidewalk, that light, this, that. I mean, like, all this needs to be, and so it's on a sheet, and we're aggregating that to be able to say, what is the total cost? What is our radius around it? And so we've already, got a lot of work done on the safety and security side with FIFA. Now it's on us to, come up with a plan with you guys and your input on what we're going to fund for the capital improvements downtown, and still leave money remaining for all the other, very important projects we have across your districts. And that's why we're talking about using bonding capacity that comes with downtown. And then, and that's kind of where we have to have a conversation with y'all to make sure that you understand what we think can get more bang for our buck. And that also helps us to not take away the talent that is currently focused on all of those Renew and Moving Atlanta Forward projects, which are very heavy, intensive projects that have to get done despite us also winning the World Cup opportunity. So there's a heavy lift that we are prepared to present to y'all as, this is what we think the path forward is. That's not a budget thing, no. So yes to the question of, is in the budget, yes, but we're gonna get revenue from other sources to be able to help us with some of this. And last thing I'll say is the World Cup money, we are as a government gonna get some money. Federal government is gonna help us, but we know that the way that's gonna show up, that might show up 6 months before the World Cup comes, or 6 days before. I don't know. I'm just saying it's not showing up now where we can go through a full procurement process and then get it and have it in our hands. So we're going to have to front load some of this stuff, knowing that we're going to get it back.
Understood, and thank you. And I want to say that I greatly appreciate the focus on the staff's attention to spending capital that we have, because obviously that's been a big concern that we've harped on. So thank you so much for hearing counsel on that. I was also wanting to reinforce if we have the project managers needed. And so just making that note too. And I can get an update briefing on that. I know that's a bigger ask. And then the last question I had was if the LIFT program, very honored to have the initiative around the bridges in my district. That's District 5. And I was also going to ask if there is a way, one of the concerns that I've been hearing from a lot of folks in my district and in general is, could we, getting a list of people that may also be returning to the street, because for the instance of duplicative efforts, if we're getting the same people over and over again, just to better understand those numbers so that we know allocations of spending, and also so that we can better hold our partners accountable and, get the commission to chip in and do their part, because I also want to take a moment to commend this administration, this council, and this city for putting people's needs above politics and putting in theatrics and saying thank you to you all for doing the thing, for not being reactionary to other partners' absence from these important conversations, and also reminding people that council does not have to do anything health, the city doesn't have to do anything health related, because our charter preempts us from doing so. And thank y'all for recognizing a crisis and stepping in where there is a gap. But yes, so if we can understand those numbers, because I know that I, myself, and I know that Councilmember Overstreet too, we want to do a better job of holding our commission partners accountable. So if we can have those numbers so that we also know how much spending we're putting in and how much of those efforts are being duplicated, how much excess money we're putting on it, because we have partners that are absent from the conversation.
Thank you. Yes, you want to speak on that?
Sure. Thank you for the question and the comments, Councilmember Bakhtiari. Again, I have to give a huge thank you to the mayor for his passion for this work. As you all have mentioned, this is a health and human services work, not necessarily the responsibility of the city, but the mayor always says it may not be my responsibility, but if it happens in Atlanta, people see it as such, right? And so then we have to act. So the mayor on the bridge project, very specifically, you all have passed legislation. You may remember over time. It's been approximately $7 million that this mayor has invested towards this initiative around our bridges to try to help right at about 300 and so people. As it relates to accountability, we get weekly reports from our partners on this. We have stayed engaged with the communities on this. Some of you have sent emails. We have responded to those and gotten answers. But I can tell you overall, the project is going extremely well. In addition to, I mean, there are always some challenges with everything. There are very few people who have decided to leave and not be a part of the program. And we have those numbers, and we'll be able to communicate those to you all as we begin to kind of wrap up and get a little bit midway through it. But we have over 100 or so people who have been engaged on a nightly basis, daily basis over at the temporary shelter, and we've had about 45, 50 people who have moved to supportive housing, and we can track what those services are that they're receiving. So we have great numbers on those, and we'll be more than happy to present that as needed.
Thank you.
I'll just add to that, you know, this team and you guys have done a good job of not being reactionary to things that may look a certain way in the media. For instance, you open the doors of the Wellstar Center for temporary housing. We try to describe this is for bridge encampments, individuals that we've removed from the bridge encampments to get them into this stable environment so that we can get them into our apartments. It's really it's a planned event to make sure we nurture, support. I mean, but if somebody brings someone to Wellstar at 2 a.m. from name your favorite non-Atlanta county, the news follows that person because they say, man, they didn't let me in. And we have to deal with, like, we are the standard bearer for trying to help folks in this region. So folks in this region say, go to Atlanta. This is why I'm gonna reintroduce this conversation around this our animal services. 10% of this city is in DeKalb County, and DeKalb County doesn't charge us for animal services. Fulton County charges every city for animal services, and oh, by the way, the city of Atlanta pays 60% of it. Gwinnett doesn't charge its municipalities for animal service. Cobb doesn't charge its cities for animal service. Why am I speaking on that? Now, as we've demonstrated that we will go first, we will even go last, but we're not gonna go alone on providing housing for the unsheltered, this animal services conversation, because that stuff shows up in this budget. When we went from $2.25 million to over $6 million in animal services in the blink of an eye, in an overnight memo, you're like, whoa, that's $4 million that Mr. Wan is asking us about a few minutes ago. You see what I'm saying? So, but
that's about 4 or 5 different living melody projects.
Yeah, we do some melodies there that actually they should be doing. Let's just call it what it is. So I'm going to make sure that we do our part, because our team, we care, and all of us care so much about the people that are in Atlanta. But if you're in Atlanta experiencing homelessness, you're either in Fulton County or DeKalb County, and you're in the state of Georgia and you're in the United States. All of them have to care about that one individual that may right now be on a city street. So we're trying to make that case, and we're, so as you asked Ms. Burks us about how we're doing with housing and the LIFT 2.0 plan, it is methodical. It is to make sure people are ready. Sometimes they don't have IDs, they don't have social security numbers. I called the Social Security Administrative Office, the federal office, and said, I need this help calling the White House. Like, that doesn't show up in a departmental sheet, but that's like, now Kenyatta had to go do this on driver's services from intergovernmental affairs. So just to be able to get people IDs. And so when someone shows up with a camera, because Atlanta is such a spotlight, and they say, they didn't help me. Well, this is about the bridge encampments. Now you can go to this center for that general help, this center for that general help, that center. I showed up at the Melody, nobody let me in. Right, that's not how the Melody is not open. And so I'm thankful that y'all are being very strong and mature about not these gotcha moments that when you're doing right, people show up to try to poke holes in it. It has never been an easy, linear process to get someone that is having mental challenges off the streets and into a home and a job and reunited with their family. If you find that easy process, that easy button, I'll gladly pay double whatever anybody else has paid for it. So, so that's my rebuttal. Thank you.
And on that note, my questions are done. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Before I recognize Ms. Boone, a timekeeping note, we are now into the hour we had allotted for lunch. Lunch is available. It's a hot lunch, so I would recommend to members who are so inclined that you can slip out when convenient and fix yourself a plate. Ms. Boone, followed by Ms. Overstreet.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will be brief. Ms. Benjamin, thank you for your service to the citizens of Atlanta. Thank you. Mayor Dickens, thank you for delivering for our communities over and over and over again, not just the large projects, but the small ones and being visible. We appreciate that on behalf of my constituents. We truly appreciate that. Years ago, maybe 3-4 years ago, 2 bus shuttles were purchased for seniors to go on trips and so that we can keep them out of the high rises and get them moving and active. Those 2 shuttles were since turned into shuttles for everybody, kids, whoever needs to go somewhere. So I would like to see those 2 shuttles replaced. Not the buses, not the 15 passengers, but the ones with the steps so that they will not have to crawl over each other. In human services, there was an account where we could pay a small amount of rent or a small amount to keep someone's lights, gas on. It could go up to $1,500. Once we had proof, our CFO would cut that check, and it prevented a lot of people from becoming homeless. They did not have to go through bringing 10, 15 documents to get that small assistance. So I definitely would like for us to explore that. It was an account in Human Services. Ms. Burks, you might remember that account in Human Services when Human Services was over at Pollard Boulevard. A lot of, once you become poor, it becomes a burden when you have to bring in documents and call in and have to stand in a line. So we definitely want to have an account where we can just cut a check for $650 to $1,500. Lastly, I would like to ask that we explore in the near future every city employee making a minimum of $20 an hour. We are dealing with the working poor. I take food boxes to our rec center employees, and when they don't come, they ask for the food pantry items and the milk and bread and cheese. But now, since we have Gooder, thank you all so much for that wonderful food pantry that is at the H.E. Home Station. You all, when we call, you answer. When we call, you answer. You don't just say, hey, let me find out. You all solve the problems, call the communities back, and for that we are grateful. Mr. Theo Pace, I don't see him here, but Mr. Theo Pace, where is he? Mr. Pace.
Stand up, Mr. Pace.
Mr. Pace is the person. So let me say that he has the temperament to deal with all of these different personalities. and for that, Mr. Pace, it takes a special person. Thank you all so much. Looking forward to Mr. Donald, Mr. English, and Ms. Burks. Looking forward to that tour of Southwest Atlanta. Just looking at some of the things, the islands in the middle, there were 6 guys every Sunday. They haven't been there for 6 weeks. The islands in the middle along ML King Jr. Drive, they were doing a great job from the skating rink all the way up to Mosley Park. So we definitely would like to see.
Keeping the weeds down, that's what you're
Yep,
talking about?
yep.
Right.
It was 6 guys, and they would be out there on a Sunday. And of course, Ms. Glover and Ms. Floyd called and said they have not been there for 6 weeks. So if any way possible, if we could get those young men back out there on Sundays. If you have not seen ML King looks great. I mean, it is really looking marvelous. Anytime our seniors call and just say, thank you, thank you, thank you. Not only for the shrubbery, but the beautiful artwork. We appreciate that. We are teaching our young people to appreciate our culture. So I will end that comment because, of course, I can set up a meeting with you all and come and see you with my other list of items. But again, thank you all for all you all do, being accessible, solving the large problems, and just answering the call. But we've got to do more for Douglas High School, okay?
Amen. I agree.
Agreed.
I'm looking up at this stage, and I'm looking at this stage, and we've got to do more. They feel neglected. But again, on behalf of the thousands of citizens and those folks that don't come to the MPUs, and we see them, Mayor, they see you taking notes, and somebody's getting back to them because they're very happy. But I'll save my list for our tour, Ms. Burks. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms.
Right.
Burks, you already got an assignment.
Ms. Overstreet, and then I will back cleanup.
Okay.
Ms. Overstreet.
Well, thank you so much, Executive Office, the mayor, and your entire team. I will be extra brief since my colleagues have gone into lunch. Goodness gracious, but all good information and definitely good dialogue. I will start with saying that I do not feel that disconnect that was spoken about earlier at all. I really don't. I truly believe that each of you have a really good idea of what I am thinking and feeling most of the time, and not just about my whole district as a whole, but individual areas, Campbellton Road, Cascade, Princeton Lakes. I think you guys really have a good idea of what I am, what my vision is, what I'm trying to accomplish, the things that I feel like our budget needs to address. I think you all know because you've been in contact with me, and you definitely have been accessible every week, literally. And I appreciate you all for that. And the budget throughout the year, not just this budget for FY25, but throughout 2024's budget, it shows that you all are working with an equity lens. I spoke in the finance budget hearing right before you all about this. I am very thankful for that. We are definitely leading the way with green innovation. We're leading the way with bonds for needed projects like the senior facility. We're buying property and making sure that we're installing fresh food, grocers. It hasn't come as quickly as we'd like for it to, but I feel like we are closer than ever. So I just do believe that we're on the right track. I appreciate the collaboration at all times, the accessibility. No one's going to get it right immediately, but I feel like we're working together to get it all done. I really, really do. And that's the most important thing. We're chipping away at it. And I feel like we've had some really big wins, and we've got more to come. We're cutting ribbons throughout the whole city, and more in Southwest Atlanta than I've seen in years, really. And I'm looking forward to cutting the ribbon on that Cascade Complete Streets. You know, I can't leave this budget without talking about that because that's from the 2018 conversation. And I want us to just close that door. I really do. And I feel like we're closer than ever. I get the chance to look at it 2 to 3 to 4 times a day. So that's why I get to talk about it all the time, because it's apparent to me and every day. But, you know, just want to make sure that you all know that we see you, we appreciate the lens. Not only that, but evidently Capitol Hill sees us also. That's why we're getting all of the funding. That's why we're leading the way nationally with the investments and the grants and the way that they're pouring into our city in huge funding numbers. And our representation from Capitol Hill is really leaning in, and that's because of your accessibility and the way that you all are taking ownership of the city and making sure that this really is going to be the best place and is the best place to raise a family, have a beautiful household, whatever your family household looks like. And that's what Atlanta is about. So the diversion center, I do have one question about the slides. The diversion center funding, who all is in on that funding? How does that look?
Sure. So for the first year of operations, the mayor committed $5 million from our ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan dollars, and Fulton County also committed $5 million of funding from a different source, but they also committed $5 million. We were also fortunate to receive an allocation from Senator Warnock's office as well, which has helped us with a lot of our pre-planning work. It has allowed us to pay Grady in advance to move forward with hiring staff so that they are part of the final construction process. But for the operating dollars, $5 million from City of Atlanta, $5 million from Fulton County. It is one of the areas where we have partnered well in.
That's phenomenal. And I'm glad I wrote that question down, because when I saw it, I just want to make sure that that is what we're doing as a city. It is not our charter responsibility, but at the same time, I absolutely do understand why we are filling that gap. Because, you know, we leave and we see under the viaducts and we see and we're receiving the calls from all of the residents that think that we're responsible for every fallen tree, for every light post, every blade of grass. It is our responsibility. I understand that. So I do understand why we have it and we are using it for other purposes other than just our city services. But I am so glad to know that we are making sure that others are doing their part as well, because when we started having those conversations around the dogs and which I thought was absolutely unnecessary for sure. My conversation with the chair and commissioners was, listen, it's not fair to us as a city to always be excluded when you're offering things. During COVID, when they put out help for those that needed help for whatever reason, homeowners, mortgage payments, whatever, there was always this little asterisk that said, but not for Atlanta.
That's right.
And if we are excluded from that, how come we're only included when it's time for us to pay double and triple for service?
She gets it.
So, yeah, so I just want to make sure that everybody's being fair. I know we all care, all entities. I know we all care about all of our residents. I really do. But it's important to us to be prudent and about our funds and be the fiduciary mean guys that we're supposed to be. But I just wanted to make sure that you all know, top of mind, that the work that you're doing really is good work. I feel connected to the work that you're doing, for sure. And I certainly feel that you are seeing my district and Southwest Atlanta in a way that we've not in a long time. And it is important that everyone knows that you all are doing work throughout the entire city, not just this place and that place. And so I appreciate that.
Thank you.
And I yield. It's time for lunch.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Sorry to have all of you kind of have to lean over this way to hear me, but I just wanted to lend my voice and also just thank you for the open door policy that you've had. Everyone on your team has been so open and being available for us to have communication with. That starts with Mr. Theo Pace. I just want to reiterate how much we appreciate him and being able to call him all day in times of night, and that includes a lot of other people on your team that have been available for us. So that has been well noted and received, and we appreciate it. One thing we talked about is FIFA World Cup, and a lot of other big events are coming here. And you have mentioned a lot of times we want it to happen with Atlanta, not to Atlanta. And just kind of putting on my CDHS hat, I know that there is a lot of underserved communities on the south side of Atlanta that could really benefit from having more recreational facilities, other things that are more active green spaces in the city of Atlanta, especially for our youth. Looking at what other counties are doing for soccer fields and baseball facilities. I know we got the new Southside baseball facility that's coming, but I feel like there's other opportunities to be able to capitalize on that. And just want to really just understand what are other partners doing to kind of help us make sure that Atlanta is going to be benefiting holistically from having these big events.
Thank you. Thank you. You are absolutely right. We wanted to happen with Atlanta, not to Atlanta. And we're going to be standing up some community outreach activities. A committee, actually. Ms. Benjamin and the team has already put together a layout that has a regional, which is for Cobb, Gwinnett, and Atlanta, and then one that's hyper-local for Atlanta to benefit and to have activations, and then a small business enterprise opportunity for us to, some of the things that's going to happen with FIFA is a lot of catering, a lot of transportation, a lot of various security, and these other things that we want local small businesses to participate. All right, next. Oh, go ahead.
One more question. Sorry. I know also, been talked about having sort of what you're almost calling like a strike force to make sure that we're pushing projects through for FIFA and some of these other large events. Are some of our partners stepping up like that? Are we seeing that from Fulton County? I know Georgia State also's campus is kind of part of the area that's going to be in that footprint. You talked about a 5-mile kind of radius that you all are walking to, but again, you don't have to bear all the burden for that. Are we seeing our other partners step up and being able to kind of help us through this?
In some ways, yes, around safety and security and around transportation, transportation being physical, above ground transportation, like the shuttles and things of that nature. But we definitely are about to have conversations with the county. I don't know, Ms. Benjamin, you want to speak more about who's really at the table and who is about to be summoned to the table?
We have a public agency working group, and those folks are responsible for logistics, transportation, hospitality, and it incorporates the county, the sheriff, the regional partners that are part of that, and that's just normal execution. So we have big events and large events. You'll see that. There are also, as we're talking about activation in the region and in our local community, we're looking at how do we leverage those partnerships and have sort of some toolkits and some partnerships so that we see things happening throughout the region, as the mayor said, and within our local communities. So I think there's interest, but we want to see commitments and dollars that match the city's commitment.
Just lastly, I'm really excited about Mr. Amon's new position, mainly because I think that, the public is still waiting on a lot of projects that they voted on, that they use their tax dollars for, see those come to fruition. And I think it's even more important now that we've got these big events coming, that we finish our job as well so that we're not behind and not seeing a lot of initiative just because we're having these big events. We got to complete our projects on our big capital campaign projects as well. And so I hope that's something that will be part of his job and his role, and that we can work with him on, especially our district specific projects, and see those happen.
Thank you.
South Boulevard, complete street. I got to just throw it out there.
I was waiting on it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, I just got told 48 hours ago that GDOT has had a meeting about the bridge over Peachtree Road. As y'all know, GDOT agreed to tear down the bridge and build a new bridge, which will have the bay for path Beltline, which is the only way that the Beltline can be completed. It is the only way. What I have just heard is that Peachtree Road will be closed down at the bridge for 6 weeks. And you've got Piedmont Hospital and you've got the Shepherd Center right there with very few ways to get people there. So what I also heard is that it may collide with FIFA. So I wanted this group to know that talking with GDOT, because the last thing we want to do is crash and burn the Beltline.
Right.
So we need it to get done, but there may be something that y'all can do to be helpful with what that timing is, what the alternative plan for getting people to emergency care with 2 major medical facilities literally right there. So not trying to throw you the downer at the end of a long, very successful presentation, and thank you all for what you've done. This one, I got told, Mary, we can't have Buckhead separated from the city during FIFA, and we've got to think through the medical and figure out when that timeline is. So
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. I hadn't heard about that yet. I'll talk to GDOT and cabinets and the team about what the preliminary plans are and how we make sure it has, we mitigate any kind of effects that we could have on people's access to hospitals. We only got so many now, right? So we have to make sure we have access. So thank you for raising that up.
well, thank you, and thank you all for your great work. Great presentation and great work from all of y'all. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll be quick. So 49 and a half new FTE positions. Are those going to any 1, 2, or 3 particular areas or spread across the organization?
Yeah, pretty much spread across the mayor's office. I think we mentioned some of those in the chief of staff's office as well as the chief policy office. I think COO Burks just highlighted, when this was printed, I think we were down to 1 position, excuse me, 1 position in the mayor's office of violence reduction is now a staff of 4. And so it's spread throughout the various offices.
How many grant-funded positions are in your branch?
Don't know off the top of my head, but I think they're only about 2 to 4 total. Well, and we also just got the Bloomberg piece, so that'll take us up to about 7 because that's 3.
I would have maybe thought more.
There are some split-funded positions that are funded federally, mainly around housing and neighborhood revitalization work. And
also, we are also currently reporting into us is the Department of Labor and Employment Services. And of course, the bulk of that organization is federally funded as well. So we'll have to get back to you with the exact number. As today, of course, was focused on the general fund, but we'll make sure to get you that as a follow-up.
Okay, it's de minimis, that's fine. For some reason, I thought maybe it was going to be more. Okay, so Office of the Mayor, Consulting Professional Services line, it's flat this year to last, but could you give me some prominent examples of what that line covers? It's, it's 129,000.
Yeah, so that covers support for the Jazz Festival, support for the Jazz Festival, support for international affairs. I think you know about our community navigators. There are about 8 different programs across the organization that uses that line, all minimal. One example also is under Ms. Farley and sustainability when we were doing the project with DoorDash, for example, utilize some of those services as well.
All right, and then same question for your office, which is showing a reduction of a little bit more than 50% in the same line. So what would account for that drop?
Yeah, so it's actually, we've brought on in the personnel area, bringing some of those services in-house, so we don't necessarily need the same number of, or the same level of professional services. So an efficiency that we just found within the budget.
Okay. I have one last question. I know Mr. Bala wants to be recognized, so. Mayor, was it more fun doing these when you were sitting over here?
Yeah, I used to sit way down there too, so I could pay attention as I wanted to. Now I'm listening to every word.
I appreciate your candor. Mr. Bala.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the record a little bit because it might have been confusing to the public when we were talking about the overall budget increase for the mayor's office. And I think Councilmember Juan was kind of using pro forma numbers, but overall, the budget is up 11%. It's not the highest. It's in line with a lot of other departments, and it's less than DEEM, HR, planning, and DOP. So it's less than some of the departments that are asked to do comparable type work in this delivery mechanism.
You should say that louder. Go back. You were low. You were.
Yeah, I want to just note that. And also, the overall budget is a $63 million increase budget. So year over year is a significant budget, and the $2 million represents roughly 3% of that increase. So I think we spread out the increase relatively well on all the priorities, and a significant amount of the increase is in public safety. About 20 million of it is going to police and fire, about 10 million each year over year. So I just wanted to put that in context and framing it with regards to the ask and the increase from.
Thank you. If there's nothing else, colleagues, let's grab a bite to eat, and so that we can be back here at 1 o'clock.
Can I say my parting thank yous,
City Council's budget, of
Chairman? So one, I wanted to echo, as Ms. Boone did, my congratulations and thanks to Lisa Benjamin as our COO. This is your third budget presentation. And thank you for your leadership. We had a ceremony yesterday, but I know council, some of you were in between sessions. And so thank you. You know, as you can see, I handed off a lot of the questions and the responses to Ms. Benjamin because of her knowledge, her capability as a COO for the last 3 budgets. You know, her hard work has gone into this, and we're going to miss you, and we're going to continue to stay in good touch as friends, and someone who has always offered her support to the city in the next capacity of her life. So thank you, Ms. Benjamin. And Ms. Burks, as you come on board, you see the questions that council will ask you on the fly, but also they'll ask you to come to their district and do a little tour. So be prepared for that. Thank you to the CFO and the finance team.